again, welcome back. And this topic today is a question. Sometimes Vietnamese people, we are learning English and we confuse and we argue a lot. It's about pronunciation. So Mr. GIL, last videos we talk about we shouldn't talk over people's head, and so that means to understand people in communication is quite easy. So that means like when you speak to me, I can understand you maybe 95 to 100%, no problem with me. But even with me, I have been learning English and very focused on. But in some points, my pronunciation, wasn't correct and is not correct even now. And so, is it okay when I communicate with you with sometimes some mistake like that?
Yeah, well, you've met foreigners from and people who speak English as a first language, but from Australia, England, Ireland, Scotland, Canada, and the U.S. and a few other countries, right? Do they all sound the same?
No.
No, they certainly don't.
Yeah.
And I've actually had to learn to understand English from other English-speaking countries. You know, that's another subject altogether. And I don't think English. I have a couple of friends that teach English here that they strive for perfection. They want their students to speak every word perfectly.
Okay.
That ain't good. That doesn't work, as far as I'm concerned. You spend too much time on quality, and not enough time on quantity.
Okay.
You need to have it would be better to learn 100 words, and maybe not speak them or pronounce them perfectly, than it is to only spend all your time learning 10 words and speaking them all perfectly. I would rather have the 100 words.
Yeah.
And as long as you try to, like I said about imitation, imitate other people's speech.
Okay.
And I know sometimes that's very difficult because there are certain sounds in Vietnamese that aren't applicable to English, and I know that. So many people Vietnamese have a problem with the word ice.
Yeah. Ice.
I hear in the bars and restaurants, do you want I with that? No, I want ice.
Yeah.
Ice. And I know that, but it's something about the structure of the sound is very difficult for a lot of people to say.
Yeah.
And that for some reason they can't get that is on the end of a word. But if they say, do you want I with that? I'll say, yeah, I know what they mean.
Yeah.
And it's more important that I know what they mean than for me to say, oh, you didn't pronounce that correctly.
Yeah.
It's more important for me to understand than it is to be entertained by perfect English.
So the things I found out in our education system, especially when we learn language, is it seems like study at school and speak in real life is very different.
It's two different worlds.
So in there they force people to be correctly in everything, but in life and in fact we cannot. And when we just force people, even we know that we cannot. It's give the students a lot of tension and pressure for that, and many people give up for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure that's very true because sometimes a teacher's expectations will be too high.
Yeah.
They expect too much. Some people will never advance above this level. Some people will go to that level easily. Yeah. Some of them very difficult. And everybody's different.
Yeah.
And your ability to learn is different.
Yeah.
Everybody.
And you taught me the word benevolent, right? It's same meaning with merciful, right?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
It's sự nhân từ, right? So
yeah.
that means in school, sometimes the teacher, they are so strict with the students, right? But in real life, that means, okay, you are 100% native Finnish speaker, you speak correctly, perfectly, but even with me and maybe some students here, I mean, we couldn't, right, as you said, but when we in life, we have mercy.
Right. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
I don't believe in being too critical if it's not necessary.
Correct.
You understand what I mean by critical?
Yeah,
critical. I'll be very critical of your English. No, that's not necessary.
Yeah.
To be that. If you were training to be a public speaker in the United States, then I'd be after you to a little more on the pronunciation.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Because that would be very important, because you would be speaking to everybody, not just to one or two or three people.
Okay.
And it's important that everybody would understand you. Whereas I found that, and like I said, even I had to learn, there's people from Scotland and places like that I had to learn to understand their English. And did you ever speak English to somebody from Sweden or Denmark or any of those countries? The English is a second language in all those countries, but they can be very difficult to understand. And that's another thing too, is that when you have two different cultures, like a European, people from Europe and people from Asia, for instance, and they speak their native language, but then they learn English as a second language. Now that's really, when they get together and this person can't speak Swedish and this person doesn't speak Vietnamese, so you have to speak in English. And that's even more difficult, because you're gonna be speaking to someone whose English is different than the English that you learned.
Yeah.
If you have only American teachers, you're basically gonna learn American English. If you learn from English teachers, it'll be very similar, but it won't be the same.
Yeah.
Even when I took my training here, my number one instructor was English, but he actually graded us on our examinations. If you were an American, you answered questions one way, and that was acceptable. If you were English, you answered questions as an English person, and that was acceptable. Did you follow what I mean?
Yeah.
He actually knew that we're not going to, our ability or the way of teaching and even like the spelling in between English and American English is sometimes different.
Yeah.
Like the word theater, Theater, for American. For an English person, it's Theatre.
Yeah.
Pronounced the same, basically the same.
Yeah, like center or censure, right?
Yeah. So I mean, there's just so many variations between in the English that's spoken by different people.
No standard.
You said you studied some Korean language. Did you say a little bit? I know some Koreans that speak English, but very difficult to understand.
I met a lot of Korean in Vietnam, and they said that it's really hard for them to pronounce English words.
Yeah. So that's true, but obviously, and it's like for somebody like me who is going to be talking to Vietnamese speaking English one day and a Korean speaking English the next day, I got to learn to understand both sides, right? Because it's going to be different.
Yeah.
It's going to be, and that's why I think I said earlier that learning English, particularly when you live in a multicultural environment like we're in Vietnam, is it's more difficult than if you live in one little place in one little country and you're never going to go anywhere. You only have to learn how to speak like the people in your town. That's it. But once you get away 50 miles away from your home, or 5,000 miles away from your home, or whatever, it's going to be different. Even within the United States, there are places in the southern part of the country, I understand them, but I have to think about it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that means the word we use, benevolent and merciful, mean sự bao dung, sự nhân từ. It's a little bit hard to understand. And maybe with Korean, when they listen to me, they say, "Oh, for me, difficult for them to listen my English too."
Sure.
So that means in school, that means the teacher will push you to force you, but in life, we cannot force others.
That's right.
And so that means if you listen and you can understand, and even their pronunciation, their grammar may be a little bit incorrect, but you feel it's okay.
Yeah.
No problem.
That's what communication is all about.
Communication means like transform the information, right? And for me, use the most easy way to tell people your ideas, your thinking, and tell your story. And when they get it, okay, done. You don't need to worry more. And if they try to share and tell with you, and if you understand, okay, done. You don't need more. So that is a benevolence. But sometimes when young Vietnamese people, we speak English, we didn't care much about the stories, the sharings, but we care about who is speaking it better. It's the things, and for me it's not really good. Based on my own experience, is when I spoke with Mr. GIL, native English speaker, with some friend like Amino, like Antolios, the Swedish guy went there, and some other guys. So we never care about our English, just about how can I understand my friend or something like that. So it's the thing. So people, my advice for you guys is like Mr. GIL said, in communication, we will not pay a lot of attention for pronunciation or grammar or some kind of thing like that. What we care more is about your story, your sharing, and about who you are. So you should be confident when you share, and you should not afraid when you speak up. And for that, you will learn really, really well. And hopefully that you will do that, and we see you as one who speak English well with full of confidence. And we would like to thank you, Mr. GIL Simpson, again for joining with us and sharing a lot of good things with us.
No, thank you very much. I enjoyed being here.
Yes.
And meeting all these nice people. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
That was fun. I did. I enjoyed it. I really did. Yeah.